Hey Dad, it's me, Savanna, here to give you the word-for-word recap on my life since you've been gone. As you can probably tell, I am not at my house in Utah anymore. In fact, I moved all the way to Texas. I'll spoil the end a little bit, in that I really, really do love it here. Remember last year during the eclipse when Mom and I visited and we talked about how beautiful it was, how green it was, how peaceful we felt? Well, it's all true. I am really happy here. But I am getting a little ahead of myself. There's so much more to tell you about between then and now, so let's rewind a little bit. The start of the year, as you could expect, was the hardest, of course. You passed on the 2nd, and January in general was just extremely difficult. After the funeral, we all just really felt of that loss. But there is something I really wanted to tell you about your funeral. I wish you could have seen how many people came. It was insane. The whole church was full. Like the front section all the way into the overflow into the gym was just stuffed full of people. And you, even though you didn't know it, were actually a very popular person. So you'd be really excited to see it. But like I said, January was very hard. Brad and I, literally, we tried everything we could do to try and get our spirits back up and lift our mood. We even went kayaking or canoeing. I don't really know the difference. In the middle of January, we bundled up, we put on our hats and our big coats, and we went canoeing at this rinky-dink little place that still had Christmas lights off. Just to try and feel a little happier. But we just really felt stuck, so Brad and I decided to do the unthinkable, which was a staycation. I don't know if you remember, but one of my requests year after year after year was just to stay in a hotel in the same city that we lived in. So little Savanna's dream definitely came true. We packed up, we said goodbye to Molly, and started off in a staycation in a very unique and relatable way. We went to Texas Roadhouse. Yes, not kidding. To kick it off, we went to the Texas Roadhouse. That's about 5 minutes from our house. Not to knock on Texas Roadhouse. I mean, look at these rolls. They're delicious. I promise if you watch that clip, you'll be wanting to go to Texas Roadhouse sometime this week, I'm sure. Then we drove to the great city of Salt Lake. For all the hate that I give Utah, it really is a beautiful drive. But we finally arrived to our hotel. Seriously, we stayed at the cutest hotel that was just finished called the Asher Hotel. Truly the coolest. You'll have to see it. This was just the lobby, and our room was equally as cool. I even did a classic dad tour of the room. Welcome to our room. We checked in, and now we're gonna give you a quick room tour. Number 613. Let's go in. Look at how nice it is. If you can't tell, we've actually already been here hanging out. This is the bed one. This one's actually better than the one I was laying on. And this is bed 2. That one's better. Gosh dang it. Can I switch?
No. Not switching.
This is our nice, huge TV we just watched March Madness on. These are our snacks. We came, and the best part, dun, 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 dun. The bathroom. Look how crazy nice this is. Shower. There's no tub. I don't know if you're a tub person. No tub, but gold. And then, the throne room. Has nice art. After checking in, we decided to head back out and go to the art museum in Salt Lake. There's a short interruption of Brad and I having a quick fight about where to park, classic, leading us to take our favorite mode of transportation, which was initiated by our trip to Sweden a couple years ago, by using those little electric scooters. In Sweden, we would seriously take them everywhere we went, so anytime we get on them, it feels a little bit like being back. We scooted our little booties into the museum. In terms of art exhibits, it wasn't my favorite. I tend to lean more towards Impressionism, modern, romantic, and even some stonework, which isn't all prevalent in the exhibits on display. So I really didn't connect with anything. Although, with that said, this art piece specifically, I would literally buy and hang in my house today. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a genius to have an attempt at making the basket immortalized as a piece of art. Honestly, with all that was going on, probably touched me more than it should. I thought about all of my failed attempts or things that went wrong, or how even though I didn't make the basket, those attempts have made up such the beautiful artwork that is my chaotic life. I would still buy it, and when I'm rich, maybe I'll track down the artist and have them do a commission for me or something. Other honorable mentions include this baby, this lock piece, this piece that I can't show off because it's not appropriate for YouTube, but it had Lucky Charms on it, and even this video art. Overall, it was a smaller exhibit, and I felt like it didn't have a lot I could personally connect with, so I wouldn't go back, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its gems. Again, the basketball mural, perfection. After the museum, we just headed back to the hotel because there was a basketball game on that Brad wanted to watch, and here's a quick montage of me absolutely loading up on snacks. We spent the rest of the night just sitting in bed, eating snacks, scrolling on our phones, and generally just trying to get a break from our life. We packed it up on the next morning and headed home. Although it was a short trip and not the most exciting, it still had its place as something needed. Plus, we used Brad's work points to pay for our hotel, so it was basically free. With all that relaxation weekend, honestly, I was still having a hard time. The first couple of months you were gone felt like every day was just another way I felt sad. I know this is stupid, but not too long after getting home that weekend, I finally got silver on League of Legends. It's so dumb. That was the hardest day because you were the one who taught me how to play and I played with the most. For goodness sakes, you were literally my support in the bot lane, so I felt like I should have been doing this with you. And to make things worse, I kept wishing I had someone to call and talk to about it. You would have been so excited for me. I could just almost hear your voice. Like you would have celebrated and genuinely been proud. I thought about calling Kobe and Andy or Mom just to have some excitement or love that you'd share with me. Brad was, of course, excited for me. It just felt like a huge hole in my life where you should have been, and I still miss it. So with all that out of the way, Mom and Andy had planned to take an escape vacation to see Melinda in Texas, specifically Texarkana. I had been debating on going mostly because of finances, but also because I had already used a full week of PTO after your funeral, so I was down a week, didn't want to keep burning through my PTO within the first quarter of the year, but what do you know? I was convinced. The flight was way too early in the morning. I mean, truly, I was dead. So was Andy and Megan and little Nora. Just look at these faces. They are the faces of exhausted individuals. We flew from Provo, which is still no contest the best airport, to Dallas, where Mom had rented a van to take us all the way to Texarkana. Texas was going through probably one of the coldest fronts in history. That's probably definitely an exaggeration, but it was still freezing cold. We stopped to get some food before making the drive out to Texarkana. I absolutely loved it there. It's a smaller city sitting in between Texas and Arkansas, hence Texarkana. And it really just felt like Twin Falls. Not too big, so you feel swallowed up, but just big enough that there's always things to do. Like all the major stores were there, and there was always just a little bit going on. The big one for me is that one of the days we were there, this book in this book series that I have been reading came out, and I needed to go to Target to get it because I wanted the special edition copy, which I did get. So Melinda and I actually went to Target at 8 a.m. and this was still the line to get it in Texarkana of all places. So it was a pretty popular book, but the rest of the day we spent pretty much just being a tourist in Texarkana. We took some pictures at the Texarkana signs, had hot chocolate at Alley Cat's Cafe, which is a cute little cafe, by the way. Also forced everyone to go thrift shopping, of course. And then I came home with the cutest things. I got these little house containers that are used for flour and things like that, and a cute little teacup ornament, And these clocks that are shaped like Ferris wheels and planes, I really love them. We spent one more night there before driving back to Dallas to go to the Mavericks game. The actual game wasn't all too exciting. The coolest thing is that we were in the way back. Like, seriously, we were all the way back in the rafters, and they had these giant t-shirt guns that shot all the way up to us. So we got one of the t-shirts, and we were way, like, I mean, you can see by the videos, we were clearly too high up to get any regular t-shirt guns, but somehow it got all the way back to us. It was the coolest. Plus Nora got to wear these cute little noise canceling headphones, and it was adorable. We were worn out for the day with all the driving and then going to the game, so we went right back to the Airbnb that Mom had got for us. I don't have any footage of this place, but it was a little janky. In the pictures, it looked like it's this super nice house, but genuinely it had landlord special written all over it. Plus the heating didn't work in the downstairs area, which was kind of a mess. But we spent a few days really enjoying Dallas. We ended up going to the aquarium, which is a little bit of a letdown because there was significantly more birds than there was fish, which, like, don't get me wrong, I love birds. They're pretty cool. And they had, like, other animals, but I love fish aquariums. So the bird aquarium or whatever they're called, I wasn't the biggest fan, but it really was a great trip. And Brad finally got to see Texas, and he, just like me, really loved it. And pretty much right after this trip, we decided that it was time for a life change. We started really trying to save our money so we'd have enough to pay for the moving truck, a deposit, as well as planning a trip back to Dallas to search for houses and determine where we actually wanted to physically live in Dallas, because Dallas is huge, has a bunch of like smaller cities on the outskirts. So we were trying to decide between where we wanted to go and maybe even pick out a house that we wanted to rent. With all of that in mind, the next month we kept to ourselves, honestly, and leading into probably one of the hardest weekends so far. I know I say that a lot, but there's been a lot of hard weekends since you've been gone, and it was Easter. When I was younger, I remember having a conversation with you about making a priority to do the big stuff. This was like baptisms, weddings, reunions, and just really making a genuine effort to be at all of those big things. And so it was something that I really wanted to keep up. You would even say, even if it's hard, even if it costs money, you try everything you can to be there. So that's what Brad and I wanted to do. And there was a family reunion in St. George over Easter weekend. And Mom and Kobe decided not to go because they didn't have enough PTO saved up. So they wanted to just kind of hang back. Because, I mean, like us, we used a lot of our PTO. But Andy and Megan and Brad and I decided to go. The weekend started off really fun. We got to see a bunch of the extended family for the first time since the funeral, which was nice to not have that looming over. We played pickleball, which Brad was surprisingly good at and really into. And we sat in the hot tub. I mean, this house was just amazing. Brad and I, because we were the newlyweds without children, ended up actually being split up. So we didn't even sleep in the same room, which is all good and fine, except we didn't know until we got there. So we had only packed one tube of toothpaste. So that was an interesting escapade. It really was a nice weekend. I quickly printed off and put together 80 pictures of Grandma for her 80th birthday, which was kind of the theme for the weekend. We had cake and played games. It was really good, which led into Easter Sunday. We went to church, took family pictures, and Brad and I went down to take a nap before dinner. And then they had dinner without us. I want to be clear, I don't blame anyone for this or think any less of anyone because of it, but it made me realize that if you had been there, that you would have remembered me and went out to find me. And since you weren't there, I just felt that loss and that I didn't have someone watching out for me anymore. And it was a tough time. Looking back, I do wish that we had just made the decision to all be together, like Mom, Andy, Kobe, Katie, like all of us had just spent the time together rather than apart. Maybe like getting an Airbnb, but you know, in retrospect, what can you really do? After Easter, there was only a few more months until Brad and I decided we were going to move. We had planned on visiting in May to pick out a house and then moving end of June, early July. We really locked in. We booked our flights to and the stay in Dallas. Honestly, it started to feel a lot better. I think at this point, the grief started to get a little more bearable, and I realized how hard it had been personally for me over the past 9 years. Cancer really took it out of me. I think I realized it's a lot easier to live with grief than to live with the fear of grief. The fear of losing you was a lot more confining than the real grief has been. So I started to feel a little lighter. Then we finally made it to the final Dallas trip before picking out a place and moving out here. Brad and I packed up, got on another early morning flight where we both were exhausted and made it to Dallas. Originally, we had planned on moving to a city located in southeast Dallas, but several weeks before we had changed our mind and wanted something more northwest, which led us to hours and hours of driving. So we had booked our hotel in the southeast, but ended up looking at houses mostly in the northwest, and that's about an hour and a half drive each way. So that was a little dumb of us. We spent the next 2 days with pretty much back-to-back tours through houses before we found somewhere that we loved. The view was incredible. We felt so good about the place, and it was perfectly in our price range. We even took a video tour of it. We would drive there after the other tours because we loved the area and the drive so much. So that was the one. So we reached out and asked to sign a lease, and silence. We literally heard nothing. I double texted in the morning. I triple texted later that night, nothing until finally after we'd come home, the realtor reached out to us and said that they had already sold it. We were so sad, like genuinely devastated. And when I tell you we were set on the house, like we were set on the house. Even part of me now even though I love the house that we're in now, part of me still is like, but that house was so nice. So not getting it really sucked. And now we're home from our house hunting trip, and we didn't even find a place. We kept looking, and then randomly a house in some neighborhood came onto our feed, and it was listed for much higher than we wanted to pay originally, and it wasn't allowing pets, which obviously we have Molly, so we didn't even consider it. And then a week after we had visited, like literally a week to the day we came home, it came back up. We quickly did a Zoom tour, I believe the next day, and signed the lease later that night without ever actually seeing it in person. And I was so worried we had been scammed, that there would be a terrible smell or that it would be broken down or maybe that it was all fake. But we signed the lease anyway and then started packing. I guess you don't really realize how much stuff you have until you try packing it all into boxes. We had tons of packing, and it was a tedious process. At this point, we were set on going and had booked the moving truck and paid for the movers in Utah, and we started talking to Andy and Megan. Somehow, with literally only a month's notice, they decided to also move with us. Yes, you heard that right. They decided to also move with us. We changed the moving truck to the biggest one possible, and they started packing too. Not kidding. I think we moved on the last week of June, and they decided to move with us maybe 3 weeks earlier. And that's kind of how they roll. And honestly, I'm just grateful we aren't alone here. June flew by. It was my birthday, so only a couple days before we officially moved, we invited pretty much everyone that ever meant anything to us in Utah to say a last goodbye and a birthday party. It was really, really weird thinking that I probably wouldn't see a lot of them, if not ever, then at least for a long time. A lot of them we only saw a couple of times a year anyway, but even just knowing that they were there was still comforting. Saying goodbye was still really sad. But nothing could have prepared me for how emotional it was to say goodbye to Kobe and Robin. The day before going to leave, we all went out to dinner for that last goodbye. It was me, Andy, Mom, Kobe, and Robin. We went to this cute little grilled cheese place in Utah County, and then we said our goodbyes, and I took it pretty hard. There was something about saying goodbye to them that really just made me nervous about moving. It was just such a big change. Nothing I'd really ever done before. Nothing was familiar about it either, and saying goodbye to Kobe and Robin, who were literally my security blankets, was so hard. They were the people that I went to when we first found out your time was so limited. They were the ones I could call if there was an emergency. I'd even gone to their house when Nathan was born to watch Kai. They were just like that extra layer of security that I always had. And just willingly leaving them, it just felt like a lot for me. But regardless, I did it. And the next morning, we packed up the moving van. And let me tell you, it was a miracle that it all fit. After Andy and Megan had packed all their stuff in, Brad and I had calculated we'd probably have about 20 feet worth of stuff. And when they got there, we only had about 10 feet to pack it all in there. And seriously, it was a miracle that we were able to get it all in. We shoved things in all sorts of cars, made many sacrifices of objects, but it all fit. And then we left for the 18-hour drive, which was more like 23, but who's counting? For context, every single person had to drive a car except for one who was in the car with Megan and baby Nora. So we all had to drive. And for the first day, I spent mostly driving the Corolla with the quick feature of me driving in the Tesla, which was the best. We had paid the extra like $100 for the month-long auto drive on the Tesla, so it was a dream to take it there. I think I only had it for a couple hours that first day. But then the next day was the big trauma day. I had to drive the U-Haul. That crap was scary. It's so big, so bouncy, and I thought I'd run someone over, but thankfully Brad stayed behind me, and whenever I needed to switch lanes, he would like clear the lane for me. He would signal over, and then I could pull over into that line and then go over. I drove the U-Haul basically the whole day with a quick 2-hour break where Andy drove it, and I got to drive the Tesla for a little bit. But during that Tesla drive, I finally stopped being so stressed. Like the whole drive, I was just thinking, oh man, am I making a mistake? Am I doing the wrong thing? Is this the right call? I've never done this before. We've never seen the house. Like all these things were just circling in my mind. And then I got into the Tesla and like the sun was setting and it was a beautiful scene. And I just finally felt calm. I looked out the window and I realized I made the right decision. It was so beautiful. The sky was like a baby blue, baby pink with some purple and slight clouds. And I felt like in my heart that I was doing the right thing. No matter how terrifying it was to literally leave everything I'd ever known behind, we're doing the next right step. I did cry a little. Don't make fun of me. I told Mom about it later and she said the sunset was probably from you to help me know that you were just as excited as I am. So then we made it to the house we had never seen in person, a city we'd only visited twice, and to the next part of our life. When I tell you how happy we are, I am not joking. I was suffocating, it felt like, in Utah. My life had just stagnated. I had no direction, no change, and now I'm actually living a life. During the summer, we went swimming multiple times a week. We've been to the lake. We try new food places all the time, and it is just happier. My new boss has been so kind, and I'm even finishing up on some to-do list things that I didn't anticipate taking on. We love having a backyard. Molly loves having a backyard. That's been amazing, and I can't wait to tell you all about our adventures in Texas. So it's official now. I have taken over your channel. I have so many ideas for videos, some really goofy ones, some really regular ones, just the way you liked it. And maybe even some product reviews so I can write those off too, and of course, life updates. I just want to keep giving you the word for word update on traveling or big events, so I still feel like you're here to talk to. I hope seeing me post on here makes you as happy and as excited as I hope it will. I really miss you, Dad. Talk to you soon. Love you, Dad. Bye.